good to be with you this morning, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to continue where we left off yesterday. For those of you that are guests with us this morning that weren't with us, we talked about the story in Luke chapter 15 where Jesus begins with two words. The text begins with two words, he continued. And where Jesus links together the story of the prodigal son and the older brother with the lost sheep and the lost coin. And the idea of those first two parables is that some in Jesus' crowd are lost away. And some, like the coin, are lost at home. And that the two brothers actually are one that's lost away and one that's lost at home. And so the story becomes this story of a father looking to redeem both. But I want to ask this question this morning, and I want you to just give it some thought. Is home relevant? Is coming home relevant? Is being home relevant? I know for some here we might be thinking specifically about the home that some of you left just 3 months ago or 2.5 months ago. You might be asking the question, well, yeah, I'm kind of homesick. So in that sense, maybe, yes, I feel like home is relevant. Or I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving break. And I'm looking to going home. Maybe to seeing family, maybe friends. So home is really relevant. For some, when you came here, like the younger brother, there was a sense that you couldn't wait to get away from home. It seems so irrelevant. But actually, I'd like to take this thought into the spiritual realm. And I'm really asking the question about God. Is God relevant as a home for our soul, as a family, as a father? We think about in terms of God's family, the church now, the church forever, God's people throughout all eternity. Some people say, man, I can't wait to get to heaven. Other people think it's got to be the most boring thing I've ever imagined. And some think, well, I'm not enjoying God now. He seems irrelevant now. I can't imagine how going home would motivate me. Is home relevant? You see, when we read the story of the prodigal son, because we read it in literature, then all of the time frames are collapsed. It's almost like that there's kind of like cartoon music playing in the background, or maybe Keystone Cops, where a dumb boy heads out of town and he goes and he messes up his life, but very quickly it all turns around and he kind of heads back home, and as he, slouches on his way home, loving daddy runs out and hugs him. Folks, we're talking about real life, college student age, people who could not stand to be at home, where home was irrelevant. Dad was a crushing weight. And in order to get into a life of myself and to grow into myself, I've got to break my ties with home. I want to think for myself, grow for myself, be for myself. I've heard what you've said all my life about giving your life to God and the great power of God. But I'm telling you right now, the thing I want to do is find out what's going on with me. And out the door he goes. And it doesn't speak in detail of lonely nights and the disappointment of friends who run out when the money does. It doesn't speak of the details of the consequences and the sense of leaving with everything going for him and pretty soon showing up at some foreigner's farm and asking him for a job. And the guy looks at him with pity and says, well, maybe we can stick him out there with the pigs, but don't get any ideas. Don't think that food's for you. And the shame and the embarrassment and the questions that start running through your mind when you got to start heading back home. In our terms, place that call. It doesn't go into detail about trying to make a pig-stained life presentable when he landed back at home. You see, in reality, there's just no way to clean that thing up. It is a dirty story. It's not about a decent boy getting better. It's about a guy who's found deadness and lostness, needing someone to do for him what he couldn't do for himself. You see, as long as we're imagining that we are going to make ourselves ready to meet God, He will seem agonizingly irrelevant to our life. Because He will join all of the other self-help management programs, all the other 12-step programs that somehow by myself I think I'm going to fix it. When I understand that the Father loves me before I ever come home, He loves me when I leave, and I believe He's irrelevant. The Father desperately loves you when you're arguing against His existence. He gives you the breath that gives you the strength to sin against Him. It is God who equipped and enabled you with the capacity to offend Him, to treat as unholy the blood of His Son. You understand that He did that because He risked it all for you. His relevance is that He cannot stand the thought of home without you. You never become irrelevant. Home is never the same for Him until you come back. Whatever you thought it was to you didn't govern what He thought you were to Him. You think He didn't know that the older brother didn't like him? You think He couldn't figure out by the body language, the tone of voice, the instant message responses that he got from his older son, that he thought his dad was a slave driver? But the first two words out of his mouth, after his older son in essence blesses him out, first two words out of his mouth are, "My son." I want to say something to you this morning that I hope you'll take with you. Your belief in God is not as relevant as His belief in you. Your belief or lack thereof doesn't change anything with Him. Your love for God is not as relevant as His love for you. Your faithfulness or unfaithfulness is not as relevant as His faithfulness. You see, in reality, what we're running from is perhaps what we need the most. And when we come home, we will discover that we could not possibly have been more loved whether we spent all night in the middle of a pig pen or spent all morning praising Him in church. God is perfect. His love does not vacillate. His love never changes. So regardless of where you are, who you are, what you think, or what you believe, you are relevant to God the Father, and He is unmistakably calling out to you with a voice that I pray will be irresistible, and that you'll turn to Him this morning. Don't try to clean yourself up. He's used to welcoming the refugee home. But today, what you need most is not a what, it's a whom. It's your Father, and He longs for you. God bless you and enjoy your day.